We all think we know what friendship is, right? Someone you can, share a laugh with, maybe lean on when things get tough.
Sure, that's the common idea. But what if there's a definition of true connection that's, well, way deeper, maybe even radical, something that challenges everything you thought?
And that's exactly where we're heading today. This deep dive is really an exploration into, I guess, the profound nature of genuine friendship and generosity too, right?
Good.
As it's laid out in this really powerful lecture.
Precisely. The core material we're digging into comes from a fascinating lecture by the Venerable Master Bennie. It's titled Generating the Bodhi Mind.
Okay, generating the Bodhi Mind. And this lecture it was provided by the Australian Buddhist Practice Incorporated.
That's correct. And we're working with the very insightful Vietnamese translation by Chơn Ngộ, who's also known as Grace Spirit. It's really helpful context.
So the lecture topic is generating the Bodhi Mind, which itself sounds quite profound. What's our mission then in this deep dive? What are we trying to pull out of it?
Well, Master Bennie, he focuses on what that really means, the aspiration for enlightenment, for boundless compassion, But he doesn't just explain it. He really challenged our fundamental view on relationships, even life itself.
Ah, okay.
So our mission today is to unpack his key insights, especially his, let's call it demanding perspective on what being a good friend truly involves, and how that links right back to our basic outlook on the world.
And it all kicks off with a foundational text, right? The sutra.
Yes, exactly. A central teaching in Buddhist thought. It goes,
Which translates to?
roughly, one who generates the Bodhi mind is like a good friend, bringing benefits to all bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas being those striving for enlightenment for all.
Okay, like a good friend.
Oh.
Sounds nice, sounds simple enough. But you're saying Master Bennie takes this somewhere unexpected.
Oh, absolutely. That phrase, good friend, thint trifik in Vietnamese, it's not just, a pal. He drills down on this concept, thint trifik, an enlightened or truly good friend.
So how does he define it? Because you said it was radical.
He starts with something, well, startling. He says a thint trifik is a friend willing to, quote, stab knives into their sides for you, even sacrifice their own life.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
Stab knives into their sides. That's intense.
It is. He even calls them foolish friends because that level of generosity seems almost irrational, right? But it points to a profoundly genuine connection.
Yeah, I can imagine hearing that for the first time. I read that one disciple listening to this just says, Master, by that definition, I don't have any friends, which feels very honest.
Right. It's a moment of stark realization, and the master's reply is just devastatingly simple. Even a close friend, how many do you have? Really?
Oof, that question just hangs there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really forces you to look inward, makes you question your own relationships.
Definitely. It's a brutal assessment, but it sets this incredibly high, uncompromising standard. He even says if you can only do, half of what's needed,
Yeah.
that means half moon, you're not bong, which is a true friend. And he goes even further.
How much further?
He says if you can only give half, you're essentially just a lump of flesh.
A love of flesh. Okay, he's not messing around here. So this extreme sacrifice, stabbing knives, maybe even dying for someone, is that the core of it?
It's the core of the willingness, the unreserved nature of it. He argues that true friendship demands this level of willing sacrifice, not just your life, potentially, but your money, your resources. He even mentions potentially sacrificing one's spouse or children, which is incredibly confronting.
Hard to even process. Does he give examples of this actually happening?
He does. He points to figures from history, like Guanzong and Bao Shuya in China, whose loyalty was legendary, or even characters from stories like Mai Trung To, whose followers were genuinely ready to die for him.
So it's not purely theoretical, but is this kind of connection something anyone can achieve? Or is it just for these, legendary figures?
He suggests it is possible, but, and this is key, it requires you to be the right material for that kind of friendship. And you need to have what he calls shared karma.
Shared karma, meaning like a deep connection built over time, maybe even past lives.
Exactly. That deep spiritual resonance built through actions and intentions. You can't just expect someone to stab knives in their side for you if you're not willing or even capable of that yourself. You attract what you are, essentially.
Right, it comes back to you. Which leads nicely into the next big idea he tackles, doesn't it? This whole emperor versus beggar mentality. How does that fit in?
Well, it flows directly from this self-reflection. He points out a common mistake disciples make. They hear about this amazing friend, the thin trithek.
And they think,
They think, great, I want everyone to be like that for me. I want them stabbing knives for me, offering everything to me. They position themselves like an emperor demanding tribute.
Ah, I see. And Master Bennie's reaction?
It's sharp. He says, that's not an emperor, that's a beggar.
Ouch. Okay, explain that distinction. Emperor versus beggar.
It's fundamental, he says. A beggar is someone who just wants the world to give to them, always looking to receive. An emperor, in this context, is someone who gives to the world, who acts for the welfare of everyone.
So the beggar is the taker. The emperor is the giver.
Precisely. He paints a picture of the beggar persona, always wanting, maybe even complaining about what they do get. You gave me this, why not that? He calls it a basic personality positioning.
A personality positioning. That's a really interesting phrase.
Isn't it? And the emperor, by contrast, works for the world. They are fundamentally oriented towards contribution.
It's so striking when he says, we have positioned our own character as beggars. It's a real aha moment, makes you pause and think, wait, is that my default setting? Have I been doing that without realizing?
Absolutely. And he clarifies it's not just about, literal begging for money. It's a whole mindset.
Like how we approach relationships or work. Always thinking, what's in it for me?
Exactly. The beggar, he says, goes door to door, contributes nothing, just receives. The emperor works for the benefit of others. And he suggests many, many people unconsciously adopt that beggar mindset.
Why? Is it just easier?
Maybe partly, but he also suggests it's because this way of thinking, this emperor ideal of giving, isn't really taught or passed down through generations. It's almost like a societal blind spot we fall into.
Okay, so we have this incredibly high bar for friendship and this challenging idea of positioning ourselves as givers, not takers. What does this mean for the people we do call friends in our everyday lives? The ones we hang out with?
Well, this is where Master Bennie gets perhaps even more provocative. He looks at common types of friendships, like people who just get together for fun, eating, drinking, playing games, maybe gambling.
Yeah, pretty standard social stuff for a lot of people.
And he just states, flat out, that's not called a friend.
Whoa. Okay, so social buddies aren't friends by this definition. What's wrong with having fun?
It's the underlying intention, he suggests. He uses a really vivid example with gambling friends.
Right, tell me about that one.
He says, think about it. When people gamble together, what's the actual goal? Everyone wants to win, right?
Sure.
But winning means taking money out of your friends' pockets and putting it into yours. The cards, the mahjong tiles, whatever, they're just the tools, the excuse. Because just reaching over and taking their money would be, well, awkward.
Okay, so the interaction is fundamentally about trying to take from each other, even if it's framed as a game.
That's his point. It's based on calculation. How can I get yours?
Right.
And this leads him to an absolutely astonishing conclusion.
Which is?
That people who are calculating against you like that, they aren't your friends. They are, in fact, your enemies.
Enemies. Wow. That's a leap. How does he justify calling gambling buddies enemies?
He draws an analogy to nations. National enemies are always calculating, right? How to take land, resources, people from the other side. He says it's the same calculating mindset, just on a smaller scale between individuals.
I remember reading the disciples' reaction to this. Just total shock.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, so all these people around me, none of them are friends.
Exactly. And the master's answer is just stark. Those are enemies.
And then the logical follow-up. But enemies usually avoid each other. Why are these people hanging out together?
And Master Bennie's response is so simple yet profound. Because they don't know.
They don't realize the nature of the interaction. They think they're friends, but the underlying dynamic is adversarial, according to this definition.
Precisely. They haven't recognized their own personality positioning or the positioning of others. They haven't understood this deeper definition of friendship versus calculation.
So it really forces you back to that core question. What's my own default setting? Am I approaching interactions looking to give like the emperor or looking to get like the beggar?
That's the crux of it. And the implication, Master Bennie suggests, is that if you find yourself lacking true friends, those willing to make real sacrifices, it often stems from not being that material for friendship yourself.
Because you haven't cultivated that generosity, or you don't have that shared karma.
Both. And because maybe you're stuck in that beggar mentality, always expecting others to be good to you, without embodying that generous spirit yourself. He sees it as a kind of generational gap, where these deeper concepts of giving and true connection aren't taught or valued.
Leading to a situation where people might be surrounded by others, yet fundamentally alone, or worse, surrounded by unknowing enemies.
That's the stark picture he paints. It's a call for radical self-awareness and a transformation of our own inner positioning.
Wow. Okay, this deep dive has definitely stirred up a lot. We've covered Venerable Master Bennie's incredibly demanding view of a true friend, that willingness for ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, the whole stabbing knives idea is hard to forget.
Absolutely. And the huge difference between the beggar mentality, always seeking to receive, versus the emperor mentality, focused on giving to the world.
That fundamental personality positioning he talks about.
And finally, confronting that really unsettling idea that many people we might casually call friends could actually be seen as enemies if their interactions are based on calculation and taking rather than genuine giving.
It's challenging stuff, but understanding these concepts, really grappling with them, can definitely lead to some deep self-reflection, hopefully maybe even a shift in how we position ourselves in the world.
Moving more towards that emperor mindset, perhaps.
Choosing to be a giver, yeah, rather than defaulting to being a taker. It's a conscious choice.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. If true friendship, in this radical sense, is about profound, unreserved giving, how might consciously adopting that emperor's mindset, that posture of consistent, uncalculating contribution, how might that change things? Not just your friendships, but maybe every single interaction you have.
It's a powerful question to sit with. And before we close, we really want to express our sincere gratitude to everyone who made this deep dive possible.
Absolutely.
Huge thanks to the Australian Buddhist Practice Incorporated for providing this incredible lecture by Venerable Master Bennie, and also to Venerable Chơn Ngộ, Grace Spirit, for the vital Vietnamese translation that helped us access these ideas.
And thanks to all the specialists involved in bringing this wisdom forward.
And especially thank you for joining us, for diving deep with us on this, well, pretty enlightening journey. We really appreciate you being here.